get by. It resides between my eyes. Walk through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Eric Evans. You can check out his companies at Pipes.ai and HyperTargetMarketing.com. Eric, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes of the podcast people should check out. This is kind of like a combination, right? I have a top agency series, which Eric is. I have a top SaaS series, which Eric is. And I have an EO series, which Eric is. So, when you have these serial entrepreneurs, they fit into multiple categories. So a couple top agency episodes people can check out. I did one with Jason Swank. Jason Swank built up his agency to 8 figures and sold it. Then he started an agency group and helping agency owners. It's kind of the group he wished he had when he first started. And he also has been buying up agencies, which was interesting to hear the valuation space, the agency space. That's a good one in that realm. And the EO profile one, I had Rich Walker on. Rich Walker of EO Austin, amazing guys. He's got a great software. He really focuses on customer support and service, his podcast, so you can check him out. And Rusty Shelton was another one from EO Austin. And he's got a great story, Zilker Media. And then Matt Zalk of EO Tulsa was also a great story. From the SaaS side, I had one of the co-founders of Zapier on. That was a really interesting episode, how they built that up. And one of the co-founders of Pipedrive. Eric, when I first had him on, I think they had 10,000 customers. Now they have over 100,000 customers. So they've grown, quite a bit. So check out more on InspiredInsider.com. This episode is brought to you by Rise25. Rise25, we help businesses give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. And we do the accountability, the strategy, and the full execution. And Eric, we call ourselves the magic elves that run in the background and make it look easy for the host so they can create amazing content, create amazing relationships, most importantly, focus on running their business. For me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways on how to give to my best relationships. And I have really found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and the companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com or email us at support@rise25.com. I am super excited to introduce Eric Evans. He's the founder of both HyperTarget Marketing and Pipes.ai. HyperTarget Marketing is a performance marketing agency focused on legal. They've helped many different companies in legal, insurance, financial, all over the place. And we're going to dig into that because I think, Eric, you have a really interesting business model from an agency perspective. Also, Pipes.ai is a cutting-edge sales engagement platform that automates the process of connecting with customers and prospects as well. So before starting his own companies, he actually worked in Hollywood. He did special effects for blockbuster movies such as Pirates of the Caribbean. So Eric, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's great to be here.
You have a very interesting journey. And even early on, you've been doing this for a long time. I've watched videos of you from like 12 years ago. And even early on, you were building these sites that were producing like a couple $1,000s a month, which is pretty amazing at the time. We're going to get into that, but talk about HyperTarget Marketing first and what you do there.
Yeah, absolutely. HyperTarget is an agency we've been around since 2009 as performance marketers. Started off in the pay-per-call space as a mobile media buyers back, when iPhones were brand new and, learned how to drive phone calls for companies. And it's since evolved and grown and changed with the times. And now we own and operate a number of web brands. We buy our own media and work with a number of different partners to generate leads for companies. And we then take those leads into our own internal call center to further qualify them, get them on the phone, warm them up, and then deliver a prospect who's, very deep into their buying journey to our customers.
With that, and we'll talk about hyper target marketing for a second. Are you working specifically with a company per niche? Because I know there's lead generation companies that will serve up leads to like, here's three potential, companies that you can work with. Are you working more just with a specific company? Because this is, you're putting your money on the line here for them, right? So,
Yep. Yeah, no, it's risky. I mean, we are proficient at what we do, and we know we're capable of doing a great job, and making it work from a profit perspective, obviously, in order to take that risk. And so we work with a number of different companies. We try not to overlap too much by geography. But different customers are looking for different things, and so we do work with a number of different companies in a few different spaces. But yeah, as you mentioned, legal and personal injury attorneys is one of our largest categories now, and we've got a lot of great customers there.
yeah, I want to dig into that because I know you work with them all over the country. But let's take, for example, like a PI attorney in California. Would you, you'll walk through kind of how it works. So I'm curious if you get a lead, someone who's like a good prospect for the company, will you deliver that to three local companies, or you're like, listen, we're working this one company in this geographic area, and everything we get in that geographic area, we refer to this firm
Yeah, we always sell exclusive leads, right? By
exclusively?
nature, right?
Got it.
We're collecting that person's information. They're requesting a follow up from us. We then follow up with that person, qualify them, and find the best match for that person, and introduce that company, warm transfer them to the end person who's going to service them, and those attorneys then have the opportunity to retain them as clients.
I'm curious, it seems like a no-brainer scenario, right? Like you're basically putting in the money and the time and you're qualifying them. What objections do you get from a firm with this scenario? Or maybe you're just like, you could just choose who you want to work with and just go to them, hey, do you want leads? And like literally you only pay for the leads that we give you.
Yeah, it's a really easy pitch, right? It's definitely it's not a hard sell by any means. If someone says no, it's really no big deal to us, right? It's very low risk on their part. And we're providing a lot of value, putting a lot of work in to get those people there. I mean, the only objections we typically get are from people who just aren't familiar with buying leads from third parties and might have an internal marketing team that, feels like rather than us coming in to supplement what they're doing and help them grow, that we're somehow competing with their internal marketing departments, that they can sometimes have some pushback to us. But at the end of the day, I mean, we're not competing with those teams. We're just providing additional value on top of whatever they're doing for their own brand.
Yeah. I want to get into the process and services because that's kind of how Pipes.ai was born. Let's talk about like a PI attorney in California, for example, and what you
Mhm.
did with them. And then we can get into Pipes a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the attorney space, attorneys are good at providing legal services, right? They're not necessarily experts at marketing. And even if they are good at marketing, they're not necessarily experts at following up with people in a timely manner, or they get busy and don't have the staffing or resources to follow up on those leads. And so what we found, was happening is we were driving inbound calls for companies, or we were selling just leads. Like if someone had filled out a form and requested to be contacted by somebody, we would then sell that lead to somebody, and oftentimes we would get the feedback that they weren't able to get those people on the phone. And so they would come back to us and say, hey, these leads aren't quite working at the level that we were hoping. We're not able to get these people on the phone. And so we finally started digging in deeper and deeper over the years into why they weren't getting these people on the phone. And there's a number of different challenges that go into that,
Maybe
right?
they
It's,
weren't
A,
answering the phone.
they weren't answering the phone or they weren't following up in a timely manner, right? And so the it's a direct downward graph from the time someone actually expresses interest and says, "Hey, I need to talk to somebody. I'd like to get a call from someone." If you don't follow up with that person in 5 minutes, the odds of that person answering the phone keep going down. And we found that people would get busy and they might not call till the next day, and at which point that person's probably already found another competitor to work with or made some other phone calls, filled out some other forms. And so that's where we started putting more effort into doing that follow-up ourselves, not just selling the leads, but saying, hey, we're going to generate this lead. And not only are we going to, get this person information for you, we're actually going to get them on the phone, make sure their information is correct, make sure they meet all the criteria that we know you would ask once we get them on the phone, and kind of serve them up on a silver platter. And so they just need to make sure that they're ready to answer the phone. And so we solve those challenges in a, both a cost effective and efficient way, right? It can be expensive to hire resources to make outbound phone calls to follow up on these leads. And so that's where Pipes kind of came into the picture years later, of finding ways to automate that through SMS and AI to make sure that we're meeting those people right when they're interested, getting them on the phone, qualifying them, and getting them over in a way that's super efficient.
I think, Eric, this is instructive, I think, for any business. So I want to go through the process a little bit, because it seems like the
Sure.
first step is obviously you became masters at paid search. It sounds like there's some SEO as well. So do you build like custom
Yep.
pages for the company from like an SEO perspective as well, from a traffic perspective? Or like what are all the ways that you, first of all, like track the person, the lead just to even sign up?
Yeah, so we own and operate our own web brands in a number of different verticals and industries, and drive traffic to our own websites that we can then optimize those consumer journeys, and get people through our own marketing funnels. And so we're handling all of that in-house through our own web properties.
And then
We
those ways you do it are they a combination? I'm looking here at your page if people are watching the video, but it could be paid search, local listing, SEO, blogging, social media, radio, all these channels, display, email, TV, and web video, all these channels kind of to drive traffic.
Yeah, so we're buying traffic and media from a number of different channels and funneling them all through our own call center and websites.
Yeah. And so the next step is they fill out a form. Like you create these
Hmm.
optimized websites, obviously. You've been doing this back in the day, in the early days. Once they
Yep.
do that, they go to a call center.
Correct. Yeah. So they'll go through both a combination of our live agents and pipes to get them on the phone and make sure that we call it speed to lead, right? That we're following up with those people immediately. And if we don't get them on the phone right away, we're automating a lead nurture sequence that's going to send them text messages and make follow up phone calls to make sure that we do get them on the phone when they're ready to talk.
I'm curious. So we're here in like kind of in this process and stage where you're talking to someone, you're in the call center. You could have just used pipes as your superpower and never released it to anyone else to use it. Right? Because you're using this internally, right? Speed to lead.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to release it so that other people could use it too? It's kind of like a little bit of a
Yeah.
secret sauce.
It is. Yeah, no, that was, something I wrestled with when we had built it, that, should we just keep this for ourselves and continue to grow the agency side? But I had a dream of, getting into the SaaS business and creating my own technology. We were working with a lot of different systems to accomplish what we were doing at HyperTarget. And I always felt like I was working as a free product manager for these other companies, right? And I was constantly giving feedback and giving feature requests. And a lot of them got built, some of them didn't. But in the back of my mind, I always felt like I have a knack for designing these marketing systems. And man, I'd really love to build my own, right, and bring that to market someday. So it was just something that was in the back of my head. And when we finally had Pipes to a state, or pre-Pipes before it had its own name, where it was really working well, I decided to take the leap of faith and start a second company here, and both to just diversify my own revenue streams and also be part of that journey of growing a tech company. It was always something I wanted to do, and I kind of follow my heart. I mean, that's my story, from the movie industry to this to the next thing. So it felt like the next adventure and something I wanted to tackle.
Yeah, and you knew what you wanted too, and maybe you wanted certain features. So at that stage, at what point, so they could talk to someone or Pipes, what were some of the key features you discovered you needed, within Pipes to serve hyper target marketing, which obviously helps the other companies on the platform?
Yeah, definitely. It's been an evolution where Pipes initially was designed just for my own purposes, right? For the things we needed at HyperTarget, and as time has gone on, we've built features and it's taken a life of its own to service our customers at Pipes that are much larger companies that have different needs, and so it's evolved and to where there's new features now that are much broader than just the needs of HyperTarget. But some of the things that set us apart initially was not just a sales engagement platform, that we really needed to make sure that that the leads we were following up on were good leads, right? And so we built a whole function on the front end of Pipes for data validation to make sure that we've got good working email addresses, good working phone numbers. We're managing our duplicates properly. We're segmenting people into campaigns properly. We're making sure that people aren't on any kind of known spam lists or litigator lists and things like that. And so, to make sure that anybody that we're going to follow up with, that we've got the right information from the form they filled out.
So someone calls in, how does it work?
Mm-hmm.
Like what's happening so they call in and they get routed into Pipes. They don't realize that, but what happens from the customer's perspective?
Yeah, so whether they call inbound or we're so they're filling out a web form initially. Typically, as they're filling out a form, that data gets sent into Pipes. Sometimes they are making an inbound phone call off a phone number on a website, but then that data is running through our validation process. If we find that it's a bad email address, it's going to get kicked back. But if it passes all our validation checks, it's then going to get assigned to what we call a pipe flow, right? And that's a nurture sequence that our customers can design themselves. It's a combination of SMS follow-up, AI phone calls, and voicemails that we leave. And so, you can test out a lot of different cadences to follow up. And that was one of the things that I really wanted to focus on with Pipes as well, is that we were doing all these follow-up sequences and trying to figure out the best way to get a hold of these people. But none of the platforms we were using really allowed us to do the kind of split testing that a marketer would do, let's say, on their website, right? Like testing out different landing page combinations, the way that, different, layouts of buttons and colors. And, there's so much effort that goes into optimizing a website or optimizing an ad campaign. But then we found that a lot of times someone would fill out that web form and they would just kind of hand that lead over to the sales team. And there was this break between these marketers that are optimizing and what the sales team was doing. And so we wanted to try and bridge that gap and say, hey, we want to keep the marketing team involved through the whole journey here and allow them to split test that follow-up process and say, hey, when someone fills out that form, should we follow up with a text message initially, or should we call them immediately? And if they don't answer the phone, should we send them a text message afterward? And we were designing all these different sequences to find out the best combination of ways to follow up with these people. And when you boil it down to it, like, we've had some customers say that, for every percentage point that we can increase their contact rate, that's an extra $1 million in revenue for them a month, right? And it seems like a small increase, but when you think of how far it boils down to, initially you look at your click-through rate on your ad and your conversion rate on your landing page, and you're looking at your win rate on the sales side, but just that small increase in getting someone on the phone makes a huge difference in all this media spend that went into getting that person to fill out the form.
So when they fill out the form, does the person determine what gets initiated? So for instance, they could immediately send an email, they can immediately send a text, and they could immediately
Mhm.
call. Will Pipes do all three at once? Or will someone say, well, I really want them texting them first? I don't know. What's your advice around how they should use it?
Yeah. So there, it's not a one size fits all thing, right? So we've got customers now in a number of different industries, and so what works best in, for example, for HyperTarget, following up with people looking for attorneys might be a different process from someone who's looking to remodel their home, or someone who, needs a pest control company to come out to their house immediately, right? Like what's going to work best is different. Across those industries, and also the media channels they came from, right? Like the way to follow up with somebody from a search ad is going to be a little different than how you'd follow up from someone who saw like a banner ad on Facebook or something like that. And so our customers they can do as much or as little as they want, right? Our team will help them design these sequences and set up the split test. But a lot of people, once they get their hands on it, they want to start tinkering and doing it themselves as well. So.
Well, let's talk about the PI example. Will someone, or when you're setting up for someone, because you're running pipes on the back end for them. I'm
Mhm.
curious, do you, automatically initiate the email sequence and the text sequence and call, or how do you like to do it?
Yeah, so our software will automatically initiate the sequence. Yeah, that it's a trigger based system, right? So we're integrating very deeply with people's CRMs or whatever system they're using, and whatever trigger points they want us to follow up, that they don't necessarily have the staffing or the resources or the time to do on their end. We're going to automate those follow up processes, and not just on the sales and lead gen side too. And so that's where things have evolved to be more on the customer success side as well. And it's everything we designed initially was for customer acquisition. But we found that even after people acquire their customers, they still have challenges following up on the customer success side, like doing customer satisfaction surveys, like in the home improvement space. When a job is completed, a lot of times they weren't following up those customers just to make sure that everything was great before all their subcontractors get paid, and almost like an NPS score, right? You can use Pipes to do that, to keep these people engaged. And additionally with renewals, right? Like if it's a subscription based model, there's so much reactive work that needs to be done by customer success reps that a lot of times they don't have time to do that proactive work that's arguably more important, of scheduling those follow-up meetings and just seeing how people were doing those check-ins. And so they can use Pipes to automate those follow-up processes that maybe they get distracted or they get busy and they just don't have time to do.
Yeah, I could see how it's super valuable because it sends an email, but it also sends text, and like, I don't know, at least for me, I check 100% of my text messages. So like, I don't like neglect the text message. Will it
Yeah.
also call? Like, how does it work as far as the calling piece goes?
Yeah, so it's really focused on everything with your phone, right? So we integrate with email systems. We don't natively send emails. We're really focused on those phone engagements through sending text messages and making phone calls. And so yeah, it'll make a phone call. We've got an AI voicemail detection that we've built. It's one of those like under the hood, really cool features that isn't necessarily something that people think about a whole lot, but we've got some really great technology just to determine if a human answers the phone or not, and what action we're going to take with their voicemail, what action we're going to take when they answer the phone. But yeah, when you answer the phone call, it's a very realistic sounding voice that has a great personality and can handle objections and function just like
Really?
an
That's
SDR
crazy.
or call center rep would do. Yeah.
So
And
they're having a
yeah,
conversation with the AI voice.
they are, yeah. I mean, so typically our scripting on those calls will sound something like, hey, this is, Jeremy. I'm the AI assistant for Rise 25, and I'm just looking to get some information from you. And that can go a few different directions, right? If you're trying to qualify that person for an appointment, you might eventually want to transfer them to a live person, or if it's just kind of a follow up survey, there might not be a transfer at the end. It's more of a data collection tool to say, hey, how was your experience with our podcast? Can you give us a rating on 1 to 10? We can then collect all that information and post it off to your CRM.
That's really cool. I want to hear the different use cases with it because there's so many different use cases I could think of, because it saves a lot of time and energy. And we were talking at one of the conferences we were at, and I had taken my car in, or trying to make an appointment for service for my car, and it started off with like one of these kind of AI voice things, and it wasn't really executing that good. And so, I'm like, they should probably use Pipes, actually. But use case wise, so I could see it for PI attorneys, like someone fills out a form, they can immediately call and gather information. They can text, the person feels like, wow. I mean, I'd be impressed, right? Like they emailed, they texted, and then they immediately called me, and then they can obviously transfer to a live person, or just, I mean, they already know the questions a live person is going to ask at this point. So I could see with PI attorneys, you were mentioning Vivint when we were talking before. What talk about them, and how do they use it?
Yeah, so they've been using our software for a long time. One of our great customers, and they have their internal marketing teams that are running advertising all over the internet, and driving traffic to their websites. And they use us to handle that initial follow up process to make sure that they get those people on the phone in a timely manner. And basically change the experience for their own call center, right? To go from an outbound call center to an inbound call center, where one of the kind of uh, things that's hard to quantify is like the morale boosting effect that Pipes has for call centers, where they spend a lot of time chasing people oftentimes, and hitting voicemails or getting wrong numbers, or they finally get someone on the phone and they say they're not interested. And so there's so much horsepower that's put into just getting people on the phone to have good conversations. And Pipes kind of flips the scripts for those companies, where it's Pipes is doing that hard work on the front end, and they're just taking these inbound phone calls now that Pipes is able to send to them.
Interesting. Yeah. And then you were mentioning moving companies as well.
Yeah, that's been a huge success story for us. Is really all home services, but the moving and storage space has been great. We've got some awesome customers like Ken Cohen from JK Moving that have been with us for a long time, and have really taken Pipes to new heights and done things with it that I never even envisioned. Right? It's awesome to build something like this and have customers engaged and seeing success with it, and start utilizing it in ways that you never even thought of.
From the SaaS perspective, Eric, I'd love to hear, obviously, as people start to use it more and more, in different industries use it, you probably get a lot of feature requests. Some of them you can actually do. Some of them are like, well, let's put it on the roadmap. It's only for you. Not everyone wants this. What are some,
Yeah.
maybe one or two feature requests that you were like, that's a really good idea, and they helped you kind of expand the product?
Yeah, that's a challenge of every SaaS business, is figuring out what lane you want to be in, and where you want to stay, right? If you try to be everything to everyone, all of a sudden you're just mediocre at everything, right? And trying to really hone in on what we're going to be great at, and what we want to provide, the most value for. And so, yeah, we've gotten a lot of great feedback from customers. A lot of times, some of the best feedback we've gotten for customers has been improving the way we integrate with other systems, right? Where for initially we were kind of we would say we were like a point solution that was really easy to set up and kind of lived outside of what they were doing. But we've really found that the biggest success for us is when we're really deeply integrated with their systems, and we've got a really great webhook solution that we've built that's come out of that, to make it so that really non-technical people can hook up Pipes to work back and forth with what they're doing, to make sure, for example, if someone tells our AI that they don't want to be contacted anymore, that we connect with their system so that they're not following up, and vice versa, right? And getting these synchronous loops back and forth, so that we work seamlessly with their own efforts.
Yeah, I could see that, the different integrations people want, and then the communication between all the systems to make sure it works seamlessly. Um,
Mhm.
what are some challenges, going in, that you've discovered, that if someone's like, the holy grail, I want a holy grail of a SaaS company. Obviously, there's a lot of, sometimes I've heard people talk about the grass is greener there, and there's still a lot of challenges, even though they accomplish the holy grail of having a SaaS company. What are some of the challenges that you wish you would have known before starting?
Um, yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot that happens under the hood that I didn't know about. And so, learning about DevOps, right, and all the things that go into scaling a software company, right? It's not easy, but once you've got a working solution to the what needs to happen to go from just a couple beta customers and a couple small customers to saying, hey, we're going to bring on some larger enterprise clients that are going to be doing this at a much different scale. And everything that goes into the architecture around that was a huge undertaking and a big learning curve for me, along with all the security that goes into it, right? Making sure that we're compliant and, up to date with all the everything we need to do for larger companies to be compliant and integrate with their systems. So it's a lot, and that's a whole other part of it that isn't quite as it's not really something you see, right? It's not the customer facing part of it, but it was a big undertaking, and it's still part of our growth journey is making sure that the infrastructure is rock solid.
I'd love to hear, Eric, some resources, some of your favorite resources. The resources could be software, it could be tools, it could be books. Um, what are some favorite resources that have helped you on your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of HubSpot these days. We use it ourselves when we're building some really cool integrations for Pipes. One of the things that's going to be coming out soon is a native integration on the HubSpot marketplace to use Pipes for your own data there. It's not quite ready yet, but it's something we're working on. So yeah, they've been a great ally and resource for us. Um, as far as books go, I mean, I'm really a big believer in growing teams and building culture properly, and so yeah, there's a handful of books that stand out in my mind. I mean, probably my favorite book is one called Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. There's a lot of concepts in there that stuck with me, and it's just a great kind of story book. A similar vein is another one called Built to Sell. And I really like books that are kind of these simple stories to follow along with, as opposed to, very detailed kind of academic type books, right? Like there's a few books out there that just tell a great story and it's easy to read. So
Yeah, those are really good ones. I also like the Patrick Lencioni one because I think, if I remember, it's much shorter, so it's quick
yeah,
to get through. Um, and
yeah,
and yeah, Built to Sell is fantastic. I did have John Warlow on the podcast, so people can check that episode out with John, who
awesome.
wrote that, which is fantastic, as well. What about mentors wise? And it could be colleagues too, like colleagues you learn from in EO, but who are some of your mentors? And we could talk about maybe some of the best advice, or experience shares, we should say, that they gave you.
Yeah, I mean, EO's been an amazing resource for me since I joined about, I mean, close to 4 years now. And just getting access to people who have been through it, you realize that a lot of your challenges are not unique, right? And so many businesses, despite industry, size, segment, whatever you want to call it, like there's so many of the same challenges that people face, and so yeah, it's been great. There's a gentleman named Nate Little, one of the advisors to our company, who's been a huge help for me in learning, how to operate our company better.
What does he do?
Um,
What does his
yeah, so
company do?
he actually had an exit a couple years ago and is now consulting with some businesses and starting his own new ventures. But he's someone who did it right. Started a company, built up a SaaS business, found his niche, and was able to have a successful exit. So
Cool.
it's great to learn from people who have done it, right? And that's one of the concepts of EO is experience sharing, right? Not just giving advice, but actually telling your story and just sharing your own experience.
Nate Little is a good one. Who are some other maybe EO Austin people we could see? Here's Rich Walker. here,
Yep.
Quick Forms, and he's got the Customer Wins podcast. Who are some of the other EO Austin people you've learned from?
Oh man, there's a lot. Another gentleman named Jeff Carpenter has been a huge help for me, and a lot of guys in my forum. Which I've had a great experience learning from them. Forrest Higdon and Donald Addington, a number of guys that we all have such different companies, but just seeing the struggles that they've gone through and the things that they've learned have helped me grow both as a person and in my businesses as well.
Um, Eric, I want to talk about team. You mentioned culture and team is really important to you. What are some of the things you do in Pipes and hyper target marketing to help maintain and foster great culture?
Yeah, it's evolved over the years. Years ago we had an office, and so the way you interact with people when you're all coming into the office every day is it's a little easier to have those water cooler conversations. But since the pandemic hit, we've gone fully remote, and the team is spread out all over the country and all over the world now. And so being able to maintain good working relationships while everyone's spread out on different time zones, different schedules, different life experiences and places like that. That's the biggest challenge is being able to maintain a unified culture, distributed. And one of the things that didn't mean a lot to me years ago and has become a much bigger part of how I maintain that culture. And it might sound simple, but it's establishing core values that you really believe in, and core values that you as an executive can actually demonstrate, right? Where I think those things tend to fall apart and culture can fall apart is when you tell your employees about these core values that are important to your company, but if you don't demonstrate them, right, it's if your actions don't demonstrate them, then your words fall flat. And so that's been a really big part of it, is that we think hard and believe in those core values and live them.
What's one important core value that was a must on that list for you?
Yeah, so high integrity actions is probably my most important thing, and that's something I say kind of sets us apart. It's I'd say especially in the lead generation industry, where unfortunately it doesn't have the best reputation all the time. Is that we're always going to behave with integrity, right? That's one thing we stand behind, and not just talking about it, but actually doing it, right? And that goes to how we behave with each other, how we behave with our clients, with our vendors, just treating people with respect and higher integrity and doing what you say you're going to do.
Yeah. I'd love to hear some of the key hires you put in place from the agency perspective. What, because I know it started with just you created some websites, you're making a couple thousand. We won't get
Yeah.
into it now, but your thought process on really, it speaks to your core value of high integrity and the way you chose the niche. And maybe at the time you didn't identify it as that, but you're like, at the time, I've heard you talk about, okay, there's these acai green tea, like kind of pills and supplements, or we can help like an actual large company get leads for their financial services or law firm. And I'm sure you maybe could have made some quick and easy money on some of these pills and potions, and you chose against that from just a long-term view. But at that time, it was just you, right? Talk about your some of the key hires you put in place.
Yeah. I think initially most entrepreneurs have a tough time delegating. And when you're first starting off, you want to try and do everything yourself. And, eventually you've got to start trusting people, right? And offloading work that they can do independently, and not just, like these initial lower level tasks, but how do you start offloading some of these higher level tasks that if they don't go right, could have a negative effect on you and your business. And so, a couple, key hires I made were just, account managers. I realized that I'm a builder. I'm not really a maintainer. And so, maintaining those relationships with customers, sometimes I would, I'll admit, like even for what Pipes does on the customer success side, I was struggling to, to keep those relationships, and follow up with people in a regular basis. And so hiring, account managers that were more relationship focused, that really like doing that, was a big step for us to growing and taking these, not just bringing on these key accounts, but growing them as well. And then on the operations, sorry.
Go ahead on the operations.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a creative person at heart. I came from, like you said, the movie industry, and I like building and tinkering, and so that doesn't always mean I'm great at writing down all of these processes and establishing SOPs, and so I didn't really see the value in doing that for too long. So if I could go back in time, I would hire people who are much more aligned with documenting processes and streamlining things and making things more repeatable. They can kind of hone in on all these crazy ideas I have and create processes out of them. So that's probably the biggest, I would say if I could go back in time, I would hire ops people earlier before I realized I really needed it.
Yeah, I love it. There's an episode I did with the founder of Sweet Process, which they're they're a software that helps document SOPs. So if people want to check that episode out with Owen, it was a really fun one, talking about just, documenting process and how we use Sweet Process ourselves. And so we love it. It's just an easy way for the team to find and create SOPs. So I love that. Eric, I want to be the first one to thank you. Everyone should check out Pipes.ai. And you can check out HyperTargetMarketing.com to learn more. And I really appreciate you sharing your journey with everyone. And we'll see everyone next time. And Eric, thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy. Glad to be here.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like 100 grand.